I'm Cadence Dubus, and this is Busybody Podcast. Today, I'm joined by my half brother. I have four half siblings who are all quite a bit older than I am because our parents' age difference was quite large. The famous author, Andre Dubus. You might have heard him on NPR. He is the author of many novels, collections of essays, a memoir, upcoming book coming out in the next couple of weeks. I'm so happy to have him on in his very busy schedule. It kind of occurred to me, in my mind, in my perspective, you've always had such a strong, what I would call physical practice. And it's also something that like our father had, and I'm sure it influenced me.
All three of my kids have it too.
Yeah, exactly. And
Without us telling them to do it. We never told them to do it.
yeah. And you married a dancer. And I was just thinking about, I don't know if anyone has really asked you about that aspect of your life, and also how I know that you are very disciplined about your time for writing, and it would seem to me also your physical time. And I like interviewing people on this podcast who are at different stages of their life, and the fact that you're now in your 60s, correct?
64.
Yeah. So you have spent a whole lifetime engaging with your body. And I think, so much of what I talk about with my clients, people have a really narrow perspective of their bodies. And so much of like moving away from diet culture and moving away from a very patriarchal view of our bodies, or even a white supremacist perspective of what bodies are supposed to look like, is getting a much broader sense of like, what are we engaging with our bodies for? One of my clients said it really articulately in a message to me. She was just like, we are 17 to 23 for such a short period of our lives, and it seems like for the rest of our lives we try to look like that still, or we chase that, or we're told that we should look like that. Mm-hmm. And it's this window that you blow past, and then certainly as women we're just told that the older we get the worse we are. But I know that you've had illness and you've had injuries and all these things, and you've always kept some kind of practice going, and you've always been creating and working and doing many things. So that wasn't a question.
Well, you want me to hold forth for a little bit? I mean,
yeah, I know you can. I know you're good at that.
Yeah, I mean, what you said, has opened up my mind to a lot of things. So, yeah, I'm 64. And except for when I had pneumonia twice about 20 years ago, I really have never missed a workout in 50 years. I started working out at 13, 14. And my relationship to my body was really unhealthy for a while. So why did I start working out? I wrote all about this in that memoir, Townie, but I was a small kid who wore glasses and used adverbs in daily speech, and we moved a lot and lived in tough neighborhoods. I got beat up all the time. And one day I snapped and said, I'm not going to get beat up anymore. And it was actually much more. Let me back up. I don't know if you read Townie, but there's a moment where Jeb is 13, I'm 14, and a grown man beats up Jeb. And I can't.
I did, yeah.
And
but tell the story.
I can't defend my brother. I mean, maybe I could, but I weighed about 130 pounds myself. This guy was a big 20-year-old military policeman on leave from the Army, probably 180, 200 pounds. I was terrified of him, and I froze. In violence, you do at least three things. You fight like hell, you run like hell, or you freeze. And for years, I was the kid who froze. And took me years to figure out why I froze, other than just terror. I was still rationalizing, why is he being mean to me? I wasn't mean to him. Why is he being mean to me? And I finally snapped and just accepted there's brutality, and I became a fighter. And it began that day. I actually looked in the mirror at my 14-year-old face after not defending my brother, and I told my face, I don't care what happens to you anymore. At this time, I've been beaten up for from about age 10 to 14. And I said, I don't care if you die. I don't care if you get beaten to death, shot, stabbed. And I started to do push-ups. I maybe got 3 or 4. Started to sit-ups. I got 5 or 6. But within a year, I was doing 1,000 sit-ups without stopping. which
Mm.
takes, an hour and a half. My lower back would be bleeding against the floor and sticking to it, but I wouldn't stop. I was running 10 miles with 10-pound bars in my hands. I joined a boxing gym. I began to work out 4 to 5 hours a day, and I was way overtrained, and we were broke, so there was no food to even replenish all the training. But I got hard and I got stronger, and so I became a fighter and a violent young man. I mean, I hate violence. I particularly hate male violence against women. I go to a bar, wait for some guy to backhand his wife. I'd put him in the hospital, or I try to, on and on. What got me off this path was creative writing. I found another way to express myself, and I began. I was no longer afraid to fight. I was afraid not to fight, but writing got me off that. I, I just stopped. Said, nope, I'm not going to be a violent person. But what stayed were the workouts. And, for years, Cadence, I hated summer. And I couldn't figure out, I wasn't sure why. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't my favorite season. I mean, even into my 30s, I finally figured out, once we started having our 3 babies and, we're having fun in the summertime, I realized, oh, you didn't like summer because you never got as big as you wanted, and now you have to show your bare arms and legs, which never got big. I got strong, but never put on muscle. And for years, so I had an unhealthy relationship with my vision of myself, and it just, you get older, and I, so I would say from about age 14 to 26, I was working out to get big. I was working out to look a certain way. I would say mainly 14 to about 20, 21. I wanted, when anyone walked into the room, I wanted them to see, the bad guys to see a big muscular guy you shouldn't fuck with. I never was a big muscular guy. I became a very strong guy. I was able to bench press, 125 pounds over my body weight. I got up to about a 275 bench at about 158-pound body weight. I could do 225 for 11 reps, 250 for 6 or 7. I could do weighted chins with an 80-pound dumbbell hanging from my waist for 6 reps.
Very impressive.
Superset with 225 in the bench at about 160-pound body weight. So I got really strong. I could do incline curls, laying back with 55-pound dumbbells. I weighed, again, 158, 160 pounds. So but I never looked strong. I always looked just like a guy who played tennis. But I stopped caring. It didn't matter to me anymore that I didn't have big muscles. Right around maybe when I became a dad, maybe in my early 30s, I was writing and teaching and working construction and in love with my wife. And frankly, I wasn't in tough, scary neighborhoods anymore. And I just didn't need to look like a badass anymore. And I think my identity got more focused on being a creative person and a peaceful person and a reader and a writer and a teacher. And who gives a shit if I have muscles or not? But I have never stopped working out with the intensity that I've always had. I mean, to a fault. So I'll zoom ahead a few decades. Right before COVID, we all started to go in. So, I joined a gym. I mean, I've been a member of gyms all my life. I've worked out all over the world, but so I had all these dumbbells in my basement, and I built some dipping bars and chinning bars, and had all this stuff. And I grow a beard in the winter because I'm on the bike all year long. So even 5 degrees, I'm out there for 2-3 hours on the bike. So anyway, so I said, I've always been strong in the dips, like really strong, like sets of 8 with 100 pounds hanging off a chain, full body weights. So I said, I wonder how many dips all I'm going to do is dips for my workout. So I put on some Springsteen. This is right before the pandemic. It just began. I said, I'm going to see if I can get 30 sets of 8 of dips. And I'm going to only do 30 seconds between sets for rest. So at 20 sets, I said, okay, I'm going to go for 45 seconds because I was winded with the 30-second break. At 30 sets, I still had so much in my tank, and I'm doing full, really good up and down form. I did 50 sets of dips in 56 minutes, no more than 45-second break. And on the 50th set, I got 17 reps for a total of 409 dips in like 55 minutes. This was when I was 60, 61 years old. So that felt good, except I had a frozen shoulder I had to deal with for 18 months. Could hardly even move my right arm. So let me back up. So I'm a little crazy still when it comes to working out. I still reach for 85-pound dumbbells at my age when it kind of hurts. But because I can, so I do. I've had to really work at not punishing my body. So the unhealthy relationship to my body was twofold. One, I hated it because it was small. And it took, a long time to get over that. I just matured. Who cares?
I am interested though, like how did that manifest? Especially because often on this podcast I'm talking to women, they're always hating their bodies because they're bigger, even if they're tiny people. But like,
Yeah.
That's always the narrative. I'm interested, how did that manifest? How
Well, I
what did that
noticed
look
that I
like?
would never wear a t-shirt, even though, I have a nice athletic torso. I would never wear a t-shirt because, my arms just look like regular arms, toned, you know, uh, and it was surprising. I mean, because on one level I really didn't give a shit, but it was still so, it was a little boy in me. It was
Sure.
abused little boy that still, no, I gotta show something. And I mean, that's no longer the case. I mean, I don't think that's really been an issue for me for over 20 years. But I mean, God, I think it went deep into my 30s where it was still, I wouldn't reach for a, you know, well, another issue too. I'd see a photograph of myself into my 30s. I go, oh, that's a bad angle. No, you can get, boy, I look really small there. I mean, this is a bad angle.
Hmm.
It's for years because I had gotten so strong for my size. I mean, much stronger than, stronger than or as strong as guys who had 50, 60 pounds of muscle on me, but I was
Sure.
doing the same weight, sometimes more. I always felt that I was bigger than I was. I go, but then I'd see a picture. Hey, he looks like he just swims some laps, runs a few miles. I said, what happened? And this all started to fall away right around mid 30s, having our kids, and just working and teaching at 5 campuses, remodeling houses, trying to write 15 minutes a day, changing diapers, cooking, cleaning, having a rich, beautiful life. But who's got time? But I never missed workouts, even then.
Yeah, and
Even,
I want to ask also because I think people have such an idea of there's such a kind of social media idea of like never miss your workout. What does that look like to you, especially as someone who also had a discipline to write, even if it was only 15 minutes? What does never missing a workout look like? What does that
okay,
actually mean?
so I mean, let's look at my 30s. Well, let me just say one more thing about
Yeah.
my healthy relationship to working out in the body. I really did hate my body for being small and weak and housing a coward. But I stopped being a coward after about age 16. I mean, I was a crazy fighter for years. So, but then I still punished it. There was still an element of sadism where I would punish my body. I mean, you know how I got pneumonia? I had 102 fever. I said, well, fuck this. I'm going to sweat this out. I have time to get sick. And I ran 7 miles in the rain
Oh
after
my
a
God.
long day. And then I got really sick and I thought, I'll go fucking sweat this out some more. And I almost died. My doctor said, if you hadn't come to see me, you could have died in 3 days. This is pneumonia in both lungs. So anyway, that's not good. So I'm not that way anymore, but I still don't miss workouts. So even when I was working construction, get up at 4 in the morning, write for 15 to 20, 30 minutes, work construction all day, using the body all day, I'd still work out for an hour and a half when I got home. And, and so I don't miss workouts, but it has stopped for decades. I got to say 25 plus years. I just don't give a damn what I look like. I really don't. I mean, for me, it's mental health. And now I think I'm in a pretty healthy relationship to working out. What I do now is I have my mornings to write and I write for 1 to 3 hours and then I work out for 1 to 3 hours. and it's a beautiful way just to cleanse my mind. I mean, and right, it's so goddamn hard to write a book and a novel and a short story and all that. And all the demons and all the self-doubts, everything, it just gets calm, especially with I've always felt this way, even more so about long distance running, which I don't do anymore because I broke my knee, but now it's the biking, is the long endurance work really is just a wonderfully meditative thing. So for many years now, 25 to 30, my workout practice, which is 5 to 6 days a week and has been since 1973, is mental health. It's
Mm.
really, it's not to look good in a suit. It's not to look good with my shirt off, because I still rarely take it off. Although it's funny, Fontaine, my wife of 36 years, because she hates this beard, which, again, I just do for the cold and the biking. But um, so I'll take off my shirt. She'll say, yeah, body of a 30-year-old, face of an 80-year-old, shave it. I said, yeah, but you just gave me a nice compliment, honey, about the 30-year-old body. I don't know. So, I mean, part of it is it hasn't been healthy. I have punished my body, but I cannot tell you, Cadence, how many, it's almost weekly, maybe daily, where after a particularly good hard workout, what I love about workouts too, daily workouts, is, if you're a little down, and I was today, going through a really tough time with this new thing I'm working on, just full of self-doubt and self-loathing. If you're down, it brings you up.
Yeah.
A little too up, it brings you down a little bit, calms you down. It's a great stabilizer. And I cannot tell you how many times after a workout I say a silent prayer of thanks for my shitty childhood. Like I thank I don't believe in a God, but I thank the gods, the divine. Hey, thanks for me being a bullied little kid. Because look, I've got this habit. I don't know if I'd have this habit 50 years long if I wasn't desperate to defend myself and build muscle. And over the years, I've trained a bunch of friends and family, and I've watched people get addicted to exercise. And here's the thing too, so we're blessed with these three miracles. Our three kids: Austin's 31, Ariadne's 28, and Elias, our youngest son's 26. I did not, and Fontaine didn't. She's a dancer, and she's been, dancing 6 days a week since she was 8. They grew up with active parents, so they saw us. They're going to go. He's going to the gym. She's going to the thing, and they saw us. But I never said, you guys have to work out, because I wanted them to find it themselves. In fact, Austin was getting pretty heavy as a high school kid, and eating a lot. And he was up to 270, and his blood pressure was high. He was on the football team. They loved his size, and he was strong. But I didn't tell him to stop eating. I didn't tell him to work out. I waited till he came to me. So he said, hey, can you bring me to the gym sometime? I almost cried because I wanted to. And he was, you don't want to start weights too soon, as you know, you're an expert. But so he was 15, 16. I brought him to the gym, just gave him basic primary movers: squat, bench press, overhead presses, bent over rows, 5 or 6 movements, 2 to 3 days a week. Within 6 months, he was addicted, because he was getting stronger, and he was watching his body change, and he was just so friggin' joyous to watch. And now, he's probably more driven than I ever was. He's an insane. He works out at 6 a.m. at Gold's on Venice Beach with all the guys. But Elias and Ariadne are also 4 to 6 day a week gym rats, and they all got to it on their own. So, Fontaine and I are so grateful they have this healthy habit. Because also, and let me talk about diet for a second. So over the years, so many of my loved ones or friends are worried about their weight, and how have you kept it off? And it's probably a cosmic accident of metabolism and other things. But the truth is, I believe that diets are a mess, and just do the exercise and diet will follow. If you're working out hard for an hour, your body's not going to want a donut. It's going to want an
Yeah,
apple. It's going to
it
want
is
it right.
really
It's
true.
going to want an apple and a handful of nuts. It's not going to
Yeah.
want a shot of vodka after working out. It's going to want, a smoothie.
Well, what you're really saying too, though, is when you engage regularly with your body, you become more in tune with your body, and that's something
Yes.
that I often talk to people about. If they try and put the cart before the horse or something, if they want to change their diet, I always say, do you have a physical practice? And if you can get a physical practice going, you're
Mm.
just going to engage with your body in a different way. Now your body has purpose, you're learning a skill, you will be hungry in just a different way.
Yeah.
Um, and you will start to follow the drive of your body. And I notice too, if I'm when I'm on break and I'm not teaching, I'm not exercising as much, absolutely my diet becomes more pleasure based. I'm lazing around, I'm reading, I'm watching movies, and then yeah, let's make some brownies and eat some brownies in the afternoon because I'm not really even hungry for lunch because like what have I done all day.
Yeah.
Versus my usual schedule or something. I wake up hungry, I want eggs, I want I'm like really it's I can't ignore it.
As you're describing that, and I totally identify, Cadence, it's like we need a physical event. Okay, well, I'm not doing my 5 mile run, but damn, that cookie would be a good thing to do with the body right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like you need to do something with the body. And, there's a lot to be said for, okay, good. Don't run today and have a couple brownies. I mean,
It's
there is a place.
sensuality. I mean, I think people miss, especially if they don't have a practice from when they're younger. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a dancer, like a couple episodes ago, Robbie Cook. Um, you know, if you don't have a practice of some kind when you're younger, it might be harder to realize or discover or feel that a lot of times an engagement with your body, even when it's very challenging, like a stamina thing, like long distance running or biking or something, is quite sensual. Like you're really out there just like feeling your breath and your skin and your muscles and like that. I think a lot of times when people are struggling really eating just kind of for the sensation, that's a longing for a connection. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
psychologist would say that in a different way and probably kind of a very diagnosy way. But I think like we are all meeting the same need. We like to have a strong connection with our body. And when you're eating a bunch of donuts, it is a really overwhelming and strong connection with your body. And it's very kind of waking up all the senses in a way. And a lot of people would like laugh to say that you can feel that when you're out running, but a lot of the races that I do in the summer that are out and on trails and it's like hot and there's all this stuff happening, like my memory of that is like really feeling my animal body, like really feeling my legs powering me through this environment, smelling things. I have very strong kind of sensory memories, the light, the sound, I'm alone, the feeling in my chest. And also it really helped me when I got really sick with COVID. I really was so grateful that I had a very strong physical memory of what my body felt like when I wasn't sick, and the kind of strength and this sort of really vital feeling. Because for me, and I think for a lot of people, so much of COVID really felt like I honestly felt like, oh, this is what it must feel like to be very, very elderly. This really feels like a lack of life force. This is, I'm not just tired.
Okay.
I think my cells are breaking down. Like,
Hey, you just nailed it for me. It's all about life force, but also, yeah, when I got COVID for the first time just this fall, and I thought I was immune, but I guess not. And I was pretty sick for a few days, and but whenever I'm sick, which isn't often, thank God, I am filled with gratitude for when I'm not sick.
mm-hmm.
But okay, life force, right? Eros. You constellate eros when you write a poem, when you, as you know, when you choreograph a dance, when you paint a painting. Frankly, when you frame a wall. I'm sitting in this house that our brother and I built. A lot of erotic energy. It's creative energy building. I give a lot of public talks, and I have my publicist make sure there's a gym at the hotel where I am. But if there's not, you know, I'll find one nearby. And if there's not, I'll do 300 push-ups. I'll do chins off the railing in the stairwell. I'll do chair dips. It's not so that I look good. It's not so that I feel confident when I give that talk. It's so that I am deeply in my body and I'm 100% authentically me when I get up there to talk. As opposed to, you know, I don't know, not doing that. I mean, for me, you know, I love getting on this bike, and you know, we live, as you know, north of Boston in these back roads, and because there's so many beautiful old back roads from the 1600s and 1700s, I can go for 1.5 hours to 3 hours without ever stopping. You know, I mean, very rare that I have to stop at a stop sign because there are very few of them. And I find the biggest, steepest hills. There's some hills that I chuckle at how hard they are. And you know, I'll be going up and, you know, gasping for oxygen, you know, on the one on the bike, and there's still about, you know, half mile to go. And I'm thinking, what are you, out of your mind? And I'm kind of chuckling and gasping. And, you know, sometimes the little voice says, why do you do this? And then, but it doesn't even finish itself, because it's really because I feel so fucking alive is why I do this.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, what am I going to do? Go do 15 Jello shots instead? I'd rather climb the hill with my bike.
Well, I think it's a wonderful way to be present. I think that's also what gets so lost when people feel that they have to exercise. It's a chore. I was speaking to a client yesterday who's newer, and she was like, you know, what is the exercise I can do where I'm not going to get injured? And I was like, that doesn't exist. You live in a body, you're going to get injured. I said, let's instead give you enough things. I was like, first of all, definitely lift weights, be strong. That's a great way to prevent being injured. But besides that, I was like, it's going to happen. Even just you could trip, you know? And I said, let's instead give you enough varied activities that you like to do, that you always have something that you can do, so that you know, you trip and your ankle's busted, you still can, I don't know, do Pilates, you can go swimming, you can get on a bike with your ankle taped up, you know, like whatever it is.
Always something you can do.
There's always something you can do. And I said that, you know, that relationship with your body is going to carry you much further than some sort of prescriptive idea of the right kind of exercise, or somehow trying to like beat aging and time and mortality.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, this is your work, so you can tell me, Cadence, but it seems, how do you get someone to love exercise, to love the pain of it, to love, I mean, I love the pain of it. I love all of it.
Well, I think that you seem to have found a non-judgmental place. I mean, I want to ask more about the transition from really punishing yourself to, clearly you are a very intense, somewhat excessive person, you know, and that's carried you well to be able to be creative. You have to be focused and intense. You know, you just the kind of the creative output that you have in your life, and the amount of things that you do. I'm always talking to people about how our kind of our greatest skill is often also our Achilles heel at the same time. It's like two sides of the same.
Our strength is our weakness.
Yeah, exactly. So you seem to at some point have like matured this intensity so that it was less actually damaging to you, and then instead, you know, fuel for you. And to me, that a lot of that maturity is just kind of letting go of judgment. And what I hear, what makes people hate exercise, is they just think they're doing it wrong. There's something better they could be doing. They, for instance, with a run club, this is usually the arc. The first call in the run club, literally 9 out of 10 people on the call or whatever will say, I hate running, but I'm joining this club. And so our work always is to teach people that there isn't a right way to be running, and there's not the right run. And we're just at this midpoint right now. We're in week 4 of 7, and people are starting to write in the chat, I just went for a run to do errands today. It never occurred to me that I could just run to do errands, and it meant that I got it in, and I feel so good after, and I didn't have to think about it very hard. And now I'm just home, and I did everything that I needed to do, and I like I have that post running feeling. And someone else was like,
Right.
I I've been dealing with like some ankle stuff or whatever. I was nervous to run, so I've just been doing these really gentle runs. They're not very long. I walk back home and they're like, I feel great and I'm so glad that I stayed doing it all week. And before I would have just immediately stopped, I would have been so scared and probably just not picked it up again for another couple of months. And it's like that consistency to me, like that's the goal, to trying to just figure out like how do I keep engaging with my body, how do I keep finding this presence with myself, this connection to myself, because to me that's what quote unquote exercise is. That's why I was called a physical practice, because that's really my dance background. And it's more like, how do I keep engaging with this form, which allows me to have a lot more grace for myself as my body changes, when I'm sick, when I'm recovering from being sick. I have that gratitude because I've built this history with myself. And I wanted to also clarify, like when I was sick and getting back from COVID, and I really could like feel what my pre-COVID body felt like. I wasn't trying to quote unquote get back to it, but I had a measure of what that vitality felt like. And I was saying to myself, I may never feel that way again, but I know what that sort of confidence felt like. I was thinking particularly of a race that we did the summer before, right before it, when I was like hopping around in the parking lot. And I really remembered what my body felt like and the energy and this real clarity that I had in my body. And I was like, I may never feel that way again, but I know what that felt like. And I'm going to keep seeking it every time it feels like that's the way to
Okay.
go to get there.
Can I address that, because you're saying some really important things, and it got me thinking about. I mean, you're talking about a state of being, and you're talking about a daily practice. It's like prayer. I teach creative writing conferences all the time, and I find myself saying to these very accomplished, ambitious writers who tend to be, older, my age. I say, fuck the book. I'm not telling you I don't want you to write a beautiful book and get it published and have everybody read it. I'm telling you, your desire to make a book is keeping you from going really deeply into just these characters' lives. I
Right.
said, just make it a daily practice. That's actually a phrase I use. Just show up daily. Don't try to write a book. 3-5 years down the road, you're going to see a novel.
Right.
And it got me thinking about, we have to talk about capitalism. Everything, we are also goal focused. We have to have a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. I'm doing this because I want to get here. I'm doing this because I want to get here, higher, faster, farther, all that. To me, I wouldn't think of not writing. I mean, not writing would feel like I wouldn't think of not brushing my teeth. I wouldn't
Right.
skip that. Not working out, I wouldn't think of not showering. It's self-care. It's daily practice. So I think that one of the ways that I found daily joy in it is, as I think there's a difference between ambition and striving.
Mm.
I think we should strive, but I think that ambition is so tainted by capitalism that everything is so goal focused. It takes the joy away. Like, let's talk about, there's nothing, I mean, people can listen to music while they're running, certainly. I don't, I'll go 2-3 hours. I did on my 61st birthday, I did 61 miles in my stupid mountain bike, which is really took forever, but almost 5 hours of pedaling. And one of my son's younger friends, they're 30, and you weren't listening to any music or nothing? You weren't listening to like a podcast? I said, no, man, I was listening to my heartbeat and my breath. And I was looking at that tree and that blade of grass and that little stone 4 feet ahead and that car that went by too close because they're texting. And again, it's mindfulness. It's an exercise in being fully awake and aware and alive now. And its own reward. So there is no goal for me. My goal is to live an incredibly, as much as I can, an incredibly alive, actualized, potential realizing day every day without a lot of goals. I mean, so I get these wonderful contracts and advances from a publisher and they want a book. Even writing, I don't tell myself I'm writing a book. I'm not writing a book to deliver a book. I'm showing up to be in the scene with this character. What is she doing now? Is that bullshit what I wrote? And my point is, I take that same approach to working out. I'm not doing this to have a sculpted set of pecs for when we get into my plunge pool in June with friends around and they can see my nice physique at age 64. No, it'll I'll be more alive today when I grab those
Right.
dumbbells. And of course, what I'm trying to do is not grab the ones that hurt my
Well,
body.
it's funny. You made me think about, so I started the run club in 2020 or something, with my co-host who's a run coach. And I have matured as a runner because of it, right? I do it with everybody every time we run it, and we do it like 4 or 5 times a year. Um, and so one of the goals, the first time that we did it was that we were all going to sign up for a 5K. So I signed up for like the second 5K I'd ever run in my life. I think I did one like in my early 20s with a friend who wanted to do one in the city. It was a road race at that time, and I've always run a little bit because my mom runs, and so
Yeah.
similarly, I just kind of started with her. And she's never been a goal-oriented runner, so I also never was. And I don't, that I don't really remember much about that road race. And then, except that it was at the Coney Island Aquarium, which is close to where I live now, and we got to see the walruses get fed afterwards.
That's cool.
That was cool. But this first race I did was a trail race with the run club, and I wasn't sure I could finish it. And a 5K is like three-ish miles. Um, and I finished it, and I think this was the one. Oh, I finished it, and I realized, while it was happening, I realized that there was like some, um, not technique, some I can't think of the word, but basically, as I was running, I realized, oh, if I stay on the inside of the trail, this person behind me can't pass me, even though we're running the exact same speed. They won't be able to get around me. Basically, like I started to realize there was some little ways that I could, be like a chess match. And when I finished, my boyfriend was like, "Oh, you're competitive," and I've never thought of myself as being competitive. I never liked team sports. And so the whole next year, I kept talking about that race. I'm going to do it again. And I have a different idea of how I'm going to race it so that I can, because I had never really been in competition. And when you do races, you basically leapfrog the same people. You end up running with a little pack of people that run at the same speed as you. There's a whole bunch of people ahead of you. There's a whole bunch of people behind you. And there's like 5, 6 people that you just end up running with. And you're leapfrogging each other the whole time. And then sometimes some of them break away or they drop back and all this stuff. So I suddenly had this like idea, like I was going to run it again. I was going to do all these things to see if I could like pass people. And so the second year I raised it, I was feeling confident. I knew I could finish it. So I was like, this year I'm gonna try and like do my little plan. And I'm running, and this woman ends up just being kind of with me the whole time. And we're just kind of passing each other back and forth, back and forth. And probably like the last mile, maybe half mile, she starts to get ahead of me. And it's still a hard race. It's very, very, there's a ton of elevation. You go up and down these gorges. It's a lot. You're running over these wooden bridges. There's a lot of different terrain. There's stones. There's,
Sounds great.
dirt. It's super fun. It's a very beautiful course, but it's a lot. And she starts to pull ahead, and I had this moment where I really thought, I got scared that I would gas out basically and that I wouldn't have enough to finish. And I kind of held back. And then there's like a flat kind of straightaway at the end. And I was racing her. And she was like 20 feet ahead of me, and I could not close that gap. And she came in 3 seconds ahead of me. And I
But
was just like, the
but it
whole,
probably made it your best time, your best personal time you've ever had doing that.
I don't know, but the whole year I was like, I will beat that lady. So
Sheesh.
I don't know what this story is, but this is to say I'm thinking about ambition and striving. So what was really interesting is that then I ran it again, and she was there again. I will not say her name, but it's like hilarious because I literally raise my fist and I'll be like, I'll just call her Trisha. I'm just like, Trisha, like she's my arch nemesis that also I just chat totally friendly with before and after the race. Like, oh, did you have a good race? I was trying to murder you. Because at the end of the day, this is also what I learned. She is, if we were just to go race from point A to point B, she's a faster runner than I am, but not by much. And so we're always with each other. I've seen her now at a bunch of different races, but this one is the only one I care about. The other ones are different distances. And I'm like, whatever. It's nice to see you here. So this past year, we ran it again, and there had been a thunderstorm that day. And we actually thought they might cancel the race because it's in the evening and the course was all wet and there's a lot of stones. So we were like, maybe they're going to cancel, but they didn't last minute. They were like, we're still on, we're still on. Cool. And they announced at the beginning, they're like, everyone chill. Don't try and get your best time. The course is wet. It's dark feeling in there. The trees are all heavy, wet. And so we take off, and the first part of this race is pretty much 1 mile straight uphill. There's stairs, actually. It's so steep coming out of this gorge.
Nice.
And I practice all leading up to it to be able to run up all those stairs, because obviously a lot of people just walk or they power hike it and then they start running. But that's my goal, is to really run those stairs. And she and I are there running those stairs. And then as we get to the top and we start, then you're kind of like descending into all this up and down, up and down. I hear her say to someone, pass me, I'm too scared. She was scared of the wet rocks. And I will say that my dance training just makes me not scared of throwing my body around. And I go careening down those elevations on the other side. And I passed her so early that I had a whole other lady that I was trying to chase for the rest of the thing. Yeah, exactly. And the best part of that was passing the place that the year before I essentially had given up on myself, that I held back. I had so much doubt, and I let a thought essentially just take over. And I ran right past that same spot. And I remember that feeling like, oh, this is where I gave up the race. Basically, I just held back. I let her get so far ahead of me. And at this point, I'm not racing her anymore. I've passed her like 2 miles ago. I can't even see her behind me. But and all is the same. I'm a very slow runner also. And that's why I like trail running, because everybody runs really slowly. But that little slippery place between ambition and striving, I think that's such an interesting place, because I've been liking competition as a tool.
Yeah.
To keep me interested, kind of like keep the blade sharp, but yeah. I'll give it up in a second, because at the end of the day, I don't care if I beat Trisha or not. And we had another race where actually I passed her, and apparently she had been puking, and I peed my pants. And then afterwards we were like, wow, that was intense. I saw you right at that moment.
So you peed while running as hard as you could?
Yeah, that was a 10K. It was,
you had to go, and you weren't going to stop, so you just peed.
No, it's even more exciting. That was the first 10K that I did, and I trained very hard for that. It was an insane course, even more. It was 984 feet of elevation, which is about 84 flights of stairs, and it's all in the beginning.
Fantastic.
And it's all in this like logging road, so it's super rutted up, and it's just insane. And it was hot and humid. We just had very humid weather for it. Fortunately, I had done it. My boyfriend and I had done a little dress rehearsal the week before, which I don't normally like to do, but we jogged the whole course just to see it. And that was a great idea, because mentally I was much more prepared, because it was a very, very intense course. And I was just very in my body, like hot, breathing hard. It was 4 miles in. We had 3 more miles to go, and you come around this corner. You think you're done with all the elevation, but I knew what was coming, so I was prepared mentally. But you come around this flat part. You're in the grass. It's like, finally, I'm just in this grass. It's all flat. It's gonna be good, and everyone thinks it's gonna be fine. You come around the corner, and there's another set of stairs just comes out of nowhere, and there's a stupid ridge you have to climb. And I knew it was coming, so I was ready. But as I came up to it, I was like, oh, I think I have to pee. And then I was just peeing, just from the energy output of my body. My body was just like giving up all the things. Yeah,
you had to get rid of it to keep going.
Yeah, I would have stopped and squatted. There was no warning. It just happened. And then she was walking, and apparently she had already puked, and I kind of like waved at her, and then at the finish line she was like, oh, I had a pretty rough pretty rough race, and I was like, I peed myself. But that was really one of the most fun races we did because it was crazy hard. And I love those moments when I have these conversations with myself. The end of that race, I was really pushing all my energy and really arguing with myself, my body, because also people start to walk and then you want to walk. You see them walking and then you're like, oh, that's a great idea. Why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
And so you're really arguing with yourself to keep going. And I love those conversations with myself because it's like this little, I always say this to I'm like, I did this to myself. I chose to do this. This is what I signed up for. This moment where everything makes me want to walk, and I go, no, I can finish this.
So that's striving versus ambition. I guess what I've always, because I'm not competitive either. I am competitive against myself. And I've tried to stop being sadistic about my body and everything else, but I am an intense worker-outer. So for years, my sons and I, your nephews and I, would run the 10-mile Yankee homecoming race here in Newburyport, usually very hot days in August.
Sure.
And but before they started running it with me, I started running it in my early 30s, and I'm slow. And I said, I think I ran the first time I ran like 10 9-minute miles. And I said, God, I could do better than 9-minute miles. And so I set a goal that I'm going to do much better than that. And I started to train a little harder. I had a goal. The goal was I'm not going to beat anybody. And so one of Fontaine's cousin has, run 100 marathons, and I asked him for advice on how to get faster. And in the race, and he said, drink every water that's handed to you. He said, in the last 2 miles, don't let anyone pass you for the last 2 miles.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I was in good running shape. And so around mile 8, I just started to pass. Some people were just, they didn't care. They were just jogging their way in. And I was in the middle of the pack. But I probably passed 100 people and didn't let anyone pass me. And there were a couple of young guys who were pretty fast, and we had a bit of a sprint against each other. And I didn't let anyone pass me for the last 2 miles. And when I came in, it was almost comical because no one else is sprinting to the end. Everyone's just, having their fun run, 10-mile run. And I am sprinting to the finish line because it's for me. I'm striving.
I do that too. I always sprint as if I can.
Guess what my time was?
What was it?
It was 10 7.5-minute miles, whatever that is.
That's insane.
Like 73 minutes, 74 minutes. I was 35. And now forget it. I broke my knee, so I can't run. But my last run in my late 50s, it was literally like 10-minute miles or 10.5-minute miles. But I was still running 10 miles.
That's what I run now, 10.5-minute miles on a road race.
It's fine. I guess what I'm saying, though, is whatever helps you, whatever helps us. To me, I am competitive against myself. If one reason why I still lift weights heavier than I probably should for my aging joints is because I still can. So why don't I?
Sure.
My lovely, hey, say bye to your.
Hi, honey.
Hey.
Hi, honey.
Bye.
Have fun. What is today? Wednesday, 7:30, 8:45? Okay.
No, I get done at 7:45, so.
8:00. I'll have a nice dinner for you. I'm the cook.
I know you are.
The laundress. And she cleans dishes. We have a good division of labor. So anyway, so I'm not against goal setting. I'm not against, but you know what I am against? I guess what I've seen over the years, and this is with compassion, I say this, that so many people have these rigid goals in their notebooks and their numbers and it becomes a fucking job.
Yeah.
And they lose the joy of it and they quit after 6 weeks or 6 months.
Or they keep doing it. I've met people who they keep doing it, but because they are getting older and their bodies have changed, they just constantly talk about, well, I used to be able to run this much. I used to be able to lift weights like this. No event ever matches this memory. There's no joy in what's happening now. There's no gratitude even. It's all this slide. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I mean, that at that point I am like, why are you doing this? Just do a different thing. Take up ceramics or something. Like take up, just it just seems like a daily reminder to yourself of something to be so, just to be grieving essentially, which is just so sad because every day you have a chance. It's been so exciting in my early 40s to get into trail running and be able to get better at it when you're supposed to be, everyone's like, oh, I'm 40 and now everything's falling apart. And of course I have like aches and pains and all these things, but I am also more mature. So I back off. I change this up. I try different shoes. I blah, blah, blah. And it's, what a joy. Like what are my other options? To never try something new because I'm scared I might hurt myself or that I might be terrible at it. I was.
Yeah.
The first race that I did, that first one, when I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to finish, I was way, way, way in the back when they started off. In fact, my boyfriend was watching us all take off and he was like, oh my God, she's going to get lost. She's going to be at the back and there won't be anyone there, because I have a terrible sense of direction. And now I'm trying to beat these random people that I just for fun. It's totally meaningless. It's just a game.
Yeah, but you're trying to beat them is less to, vanquish them as it is for you to get faster at running, right?
Well, to hone my own, I'm interested in this feeling of competition. I've never leaned into that. And just like you were saying, it's always cracks me up. There's always people at these races that are not at all putting the same amount of effort in. That one where the 10K with the crazy elevator that I peed myself, the woman that I was following at the end, who thank God was leading me through the course because it is in the woods and I have terrible sense of direction and you end up running alone quite a bit, but I could see her bouncing forwards. She was way ahead of me. At the very end of it, I was close enough to see her face. Oh my God, she was out for a delightful Saturday jog. She was not working hard. Like she could have been working twice as hard, basically. She would have finished that race so much faster. I was using every ounce of my energy, dragged myself across the finish line. The photos they took of me, I looked like I was running from Alcatraz. And, she's just like, la, la, la. So that's my interest. I've never kind of, it's almost like letting yourself experience your shadow side or anger or something. I've never had a place for that to really push myself in that way. And so it's been interesting to be there and to discover that at this age and be able to kind of play with that and be like, what does that mean to kind of find that drive? And as someone who used to over exercise when I was younger, similarly to yourself in a lot of ways, to revisit that level of intensity, but not have it directed in opposition to myself, to not have it be about anger towards myself, but to kind of feel that anger is such a powerful energy, to feel something really adjacent to that, but it's purely in this game space where it's meaningless. I'm not winning a prize. I'm not a professional marathoner. I don't have sponsorship on the line. I'm just out there pushing myself and deciding that this guy ahead of me, I'm not going to let him get any further ahead of me. I'm going to pass him. Anytime I see him slow down, if I see him stumble, I'm going to eat up that space between us for no reason. But it's kind of like, where else in my life do I get to do that? I'm not a financial bro or something.
I don't know if this is Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. or Sr., but I think it was Holmes who said he did not stop playing the game because he got old. He got old because he stopped playing the game.
Sure.
And, so I am 23 years older than you. And, I discovered the bicycle, 3 years ago at 61. And thank God, I have all these friends my age, especially older men, who everything hurts. they wake up, everything hurts. Well, guess what? As we get older, everything hurts as you wake up. Everything's stiff. And my view is, you know what? You're going to hurt anyway because your body's breaking down. It may as well hurt for a good reason.
Sure.
Because you ran that 6 miles of hills in the rain.
Yeah. I'm amazed. See what other new things can we gain as our life progresses?
It came about. It came about, I've got this new book coming out next couple weeks from now, a collection of essays. Do you know about that?
No.
Oh, it's called Ghost Dogs. Cover. I'll see the cover. Forget that spam. But one of the title essay is called Ghost Dogs, and it's about my fraught relationship with dogs. And writing the essay, I went back to, why don't I love dogs? What's wrong with dogs? And writing the essay actually helped me heal my relationship to dogs.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So I've never had that happen with writing. It was so interesting.
What advice would you give to people to develop a daily physical practice?
Well, my advice would be to start simple, start small. Like, go for a walk. Let's start with a walk around the block. Let's start with, why exercise? I would urge them, don't try to change your body.
Yeah.
Don't try to lose weight. Don't try to build muscle. Just get in touch with your body. Go for a walk and then add to the walk. Find something that when you do it, it feels good. I think less is more. And of course, it depends on the age of the person too. But, let's talk about weight training for a second, which is the thing I've done all my life. Less is so much more. When so many people will begin with a 6-day program. I said, 6-day program, why don't you go in 2 or 3 times a week?
Right.
For like 45 minutes. And also, if you're weight training, you should feel after working out, you should feel like working out again 2 hours later.
I remember you saying that to me. I think about that a lot.
I think it's so true. And if you don't, you overtrain.
Yeah.
So, and I think the ideal weight workout is under an hour. Cardio can be longer, and I do 2 to 3 hour cardios, which is a little long, but I'm outside and there are trees and rocks. And
yeah, it's different. You're training different.
I would say less is more. Find something that feels good and then do it, and don't get all goal focused about it. The goal should just be, I would like to try to move my body 2 to 3 times a week. Make that a goal. And then it should really just, as you say, and you're more of an expert than I am by far, it's about knowing your body. We live in these bodies. We come into the world with these bodies. One day they're going to stop, and who knows what the rest of us, where our spirits will go if we have them. I feel like we do. There's something inside of us that will go on. But we have it for a short time. Let's be in touch with it. I was about to say let's take care of it, but even that can be too confining. Oh yeah, I've got to take care of my car. No, just know your car. In this thing, I'm going to knock on wood with this, but Fontaine and I she's 61, I'm 64. We don't take a pill between us. No drugs, no medication. Whenever we go in for our physical, they don't know what, and I may have to someday, but I don't now. And I'm not, shaming anyone who has to take a bunch of pills. But I think the reason we don't have to take a bunch of pills is we're in touch with our bodies. We use them vigorously. And then that makes us eat better, because you don't want to eat a bunch of crap when you are using your body vigorously. And it's a wonderful, harmonious way to live a life. And, it goes back to the Epicurean Greeks, sound body, sound mind. My God, I especially, we have so much alcoholism in our family, and drug addiction and afflictions and mental illness. I'm convinced if I hadn't had this, 5 to 6 day a week exercise habit, which wasn't always healthy, it was punishing for years, I'd be falling into all sorts of afflictions.
For sure.
It's kept me from it. It's kept me, no. And so I guess my advice would be start small, start simple, and don't get wrapped up into the whole American capitalistic mode of stronger, faster, bigger. Just love your body, move it, accept whatever it has. And I have accepted mine over the years. You know, as you know, your nephews, my sons, are massive men. They're huge.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I wanted to have their bodies when I was young, but I don't. I have my body, and I've grown to love it. It's a small little Scotch Irish body that's stronger than it looks. It just keeps ticking, and for this, I'm grateful. And I'm grateful for you, my sister.
Well, I want to just tag onto that. There's a movement, like, I don't know, almost guru, semi-guru, this Israeli movement practitioner. I probably talked about him in other episodes, Ido Portal. And I took a workshop with him a long, long time ago. He hardly ever comes to the States. And one of the things he said was, if you don't feel weak, you're not working on strength. If you don't feel slow, you're not working on speed. If you don't feel uncoordinated, you're not working on coordination. And, you know, there are kinder words for all of those things, but I think about that a lot, especially if I ever find myself getting down on myself. If I do start to get in my head, like, I should be a faster runner, and I'm really not, you know, despite these big stories. I really love trail running because most people run 12-minute miles in them because you're running over logs and stuff. It really evens the playing field, quite literally. If I get in my head, like, I should be quote unquote fitter in some aspect, I just think about, well, if I feel slow, I must be working on my speed. If I feel like I can't finish this run, I must be working on my stamina. Like, you know, so if you're starting your walk around the block and it feels long, well, that's it. You're in it. You're working on your stamina. You're working on your strength. That is what it is.
Right. That's wonderful. I love that. You know, I also read a poem. You know, I read poetry every day, every morning. God, who was this? A poet from hundreds of years ago. And I can't even quote it, but basically the advice was to go about it lightly. Lightly go about it.
Yeah.
Go about it lightly. And, you know, I would say that too. Find a way to go about it lightly. You know, and I don't mean light weights. You can work up to heavy weights. It's a beautiful thing to build strength and watch your body change by doing that. But I guess what I'm talking about, and maybe you are too, I'm talking about love. Love your body. Don't shame it. Don't beat it up. Love it.
Yeah. And in that love, you can experience so many things. It's, as we all know, real love, it's not always kissy faces and things like that. It's sometimes peeing yourself in the woods because you're working so hard.
I think I peed on a bike workout too. I did. It's because I didn't want to stop because I am still a little crazy. I'm not going to stop because that stops my workout. So we're just going to pee whilst pedaling. I'll wipe it. I love you, my sister. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking this time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.